I'll give you anything if you prove this. Watch is real. His answer leaves everyone shaken. The fluorescent lights of Hotel Melbrock's service corridor buzzed with their usual dying rhythm as Ryan Walker pushed his cleaning cart past the executive suites at 2:30 in the morning. His blue uniform, faded from too many washings and smelling perpetually of industrial bleach no matter how many times he laundered it, hung loosely on his 28-year-old frame, a body that had once been athletic but was now carved lean by poverty and exhaustion. The yellow rubber gloves squeaked against the cart's metal handle as he paused outside Suite 1847, where some corporate executive had left a stack of newspapers and half-eaten room service scattered across the hallway like breadcrumbs marking the trail of excess. Ryan knelt down, his knees protesting against the cold tile floor, and began collecting the debris with practiced efficiency. A Wall Street Journal, 3 days old, a plate with congealed pasta, and a $20 steak eaten halfway. A wine glass with lipstick marks and residue that cost more per bottle than Ryan made in a week. This was his life now. Harvard dropout turned night janitor. The boy who once debugged complex algorithms and dreamed of working at Google now scrubbed toilets for $9 an hour and felt grateful for the job. His mother's medical bills had seen to that, swallowing his scholarship money first, then his savings, then his dignity, until finally swallowing her too. She'd been gone 3 years now, but the debt remained. A $50,000 gravestone that hung around his neck like an anchor, dragging him deeper into a life he'd never imagined living. Some nights, when the hotel was particularly quiet, he'd stand in the marble lobby and remember his mother's voice. "You're going to do great things, mijo. I believe in you." The memory felt like a knife now, sharp and cold, cutting him with the knowledge that her belief had been wrong. He wasn't doing great things. He was emptying trash cans and unclogging toilets and trying not to think about the future, because the future looked exactly like the present, stretching endlessly forward. He finished with the hallway and moved toward the basement, where the real work waited. The hotel stored its overflow furniture down there, pieces guests had damaged or complained about, inventory waiting for auction or disposal. It was Ryan's job to assess what could be salvaged, to catalog items for the quarterly asset review. Management trusted him with this because he was educated, reliable, and desperate enough not to steal anything worth stealing. As he descended the concrete stairs, the air grew cooler, mustier, thick with the smell of old carpet and furniture polish. The basement stretched before him like a catacomb, rows of covered furniture casting strange shadows, stacked boxes reaching toward the low ceiling, the accumulated neglect of a 4-star hotel that catered to people who never thought about where broken things went. Ryan was cataloging a water-damaged dresser, his clipboard in hand and his mind wandering to bills due in 3 days, when he felt it. A presence, not hostile exactly, but overwhelming, like standing too close to high-voltage wires, that electric charge that makes your hair stand on end and your teeth ache. The temperature in the basement dropped what felt like 10 degrees in an instant. His breath came out in visible puffs hanging in the air like ghosts. The fluorescent lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized into a sick, greenish glow. Ryan Walker. The voice emerged from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Not spoken through air but somehow transmitted directly into his consciousness, bypassing his ears entirely and resonating in his skull. "You're drowning." Ryan spun around, his heart hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat. The basement was empty. Furniture, boxes, shadows, but no people. No source for the voice. "Who's there?" His own voice sounded thin, scared. He hated that. "I am what watches, what waits, what offers." The presence moved closer, though Ryan could see absolutely nothing. The air felt thicker, compressed, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. "You clean floors in a hotel where men younger than you pay $500 for a single night's sleep, where women wear jewelry worth more than your annual salary to dinner, where life is easy for some and impossible for others. You eat ramen noodles 3 times a day. You ride a motorcycle held together with duct tape and prayer and hope it doesn't die on the freeway. You lie awake at night calculating whether you can afford both your rent and your medication. This is not the life you were meant to live." The specificity of it was what terrified Ryan most. This wasn't a general statement. This thing, whatever it was, knew him, knew the intimate details of his poverty, his shame, his desperate late-night calculations of which bill to pay and which to let slide. "Show yourself," Ryan demanded, though his voice shook despite his best efforts to sound brave. He gripped his clipboard like a weapon, which was absurd. What would he do? Beat an invisible entity to death with aluminum and paper? "I cannot. I exist in the spaces between sight, in dimensions your limited senses cannot perceive. But I can give you a gift, Ryan Walker. The ability to see what others cannot. To perceive the hidden, the authentic, the true nature of things. With this gift, you could identify a Rembrandt at a garage sale, spot a first edition Hemingway in a box of paperbacks, distinguish cubic zirconia from diamond with a touch, know the difference between fraud and genuine article as easily as you breathe. You could change your life, transform your circumstances, become something other than this. Ryan's rational mind, the part that had earned him a scholarship to Harvard, that understood algorithms and logic and reason, rebelled completely. This is insane. I'm hallucinating. There's carbon monoxide down here, or I'm having a psychotic break, or you're not. The voice carried absolute certainty, the kind of confidence that brooked no argument. You're perfectly sane, perfectly aware, and perfectly trapped in a life you hate. Touch the dresser you were just cataloging. Ryan hesitated, his hand hovering over the wood. Every survival instinct screamed at him not to engage with this, to run upstairs and quit his job and never come back to this basement. But curiosity, that fatal human flaw, made him place his bare hand on the dresser's surface. Nothing happened. Close your eyes, the presence instructed, its voice somehow gentle now, almost coaxing. See with something other than eyes. Humans had this ability once before you traded it for language and abstraction and the convenient ability to lie. It's still there in your DNA, buried deep. I'm simply awakening it. Against every instinct, against all reason, Ryan obeyed. He closed his eyes and the world exploded with information. The dresser wasn't just wood. It was oak, harvested in October 1887 from a forest in Pennsylvania during an unusually warm autumn. He could see the tree, feel the age of it, sense the exact moment the axe bit into bark. The wood had been transported to Philadelphia, to a small workshop run by a German immigrant named Heinrich Rothstein, who'd fled political persecution and brought with him centuries of old-world craftsmanship. Ryan saw Heinrich's hands, calloused, careful, reverent, moving across the wood with tools that had belonged to his father. He felt the pride of craftsmanship that went into every dovetail joint, every careful sanding, the beeswax polish applied in the final step. He knew that Heinrich had made this dresser for his daughter's dowry, that it had been in her bedroom when she died of influenza in 1892, that it had passed through 6 families before ending up water-damaged in a hotel basement, forgotten and undervalued. When Ryan opened his eyes, tears were streaming down his face. The emotional weight of the dresser's history, the love, the loss, the sheer accumulated humanity of it was overwhelming. He was shaking. What? His voice broke. What did you just do to me? I awakened what was always there. I showed you truth. Every object carries its history, Ryan Walker. Everything in this world is connected to every other thing through chains of cause and effect, through human touch and intention and meaning. Most people see surfaces. You will see depths. Ryan pulled his hand away from the dresser as if it had burned him. His mind was reeling, trying to process what had just happened. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. And yet he'd experienced it. Not imagination, not hallucination, but genuine knowledge downloaded directly into his consciousness. Why me? He whispered. Because you're drowning, the voice repeated. Because you're intelligent enough to use this gift wisely and desperate enough to accept it. Because your mother's death broke something in you, and I can offer you a way to rebuild because... The presence paused, and for the first time, Ryan sensed something like emotion from it. Because I require something in return, and you have what I need. There it was. The catch. The hook buried in the bait. What do you want? Not now. Not for many months. Perhaps a year. But when I come to collect, you will give me what I ask. Without question. Without hesitation. No matter what I demand. The voice had gone cold now. Businesslike. Do you accept these terms? Every survival instinct screamed at Ryan to refuse. This was how deals with devils began in every story, every myth, every warning passed down through generations. This was the moment where the hero was supposed to say no, to walk away, to choose poverty and dignity over power and obligation. But as he looked around the basement, at the mop bucket with its gray water, at his stained gloves, at the catalog of broken furniture that represented his entire future, he found himself nodding. I accept. The presence surged through him like electricity through copper wire. Ryan gasped, his back arching involuntarily, every muscle in his body contracting at once. His vision went white, then black, then impossibly bright. He felt something fundamental change in his consciousness, like a door opening in his mind that had always been there but had been sealed shut his entire life. The sensation was ecstasy and agony combined, pleasure and pain indistinguishable. His nervous system overloaded with input it hadn't been designed to process. When it cleared, seconds or minutes or hours later he couldn't tell, the world had changed. Everything had depth now. History. Truth. He looked at his own hands and saw not just skin and bone but the story written there in cells and atoms. The scar from his mother's kitchen when he was 7, catching his palm on a pot handle. The calluses from years of manual labor, his body adapting to circumstances. The genetic code that tied him to a lineage stretching back millennia, to ancestors who'd survived plagues and famines and wars, so that he could exist in this moment, in this basement, accepting a gift from something that shouldn't exist. The gift is yours, the voice said, already fading like smoke and wind. Use it well. Build your new life. Transform yourself from what you are into what you could be. And when I return, when the time comes, remember that nothing is free. Every gift demands payment. Every power has a price. I will collect what is owed. Then the presence was gone, and Ryan was alone in the basement staring at his hands like he'd never seen them before, wondering what terrible bargain he'd just made, and whether any amount of power was worth the cost he'd inevitably pay. 3 months later, Brian Walker owned a 2015 Harley-Davidson Street 750, purchased in cash at an impound auction. The blue paint job gleamed under the California sun as he rode toward the antique district on a Thursday morning, feeling the engine's vibration through his entire body, the wind in his face replacing the smell of bleach and desperation that had defined his life for so long. He'd found the motorcycle listed as having a blown engine, which his gift had immediately identified as a disconnected fuel line, literally a 5-minute fix with basic tools. $10,000 motorcycle for $800. The gift's first major score, but that had been just the beginning. In his first week with the gift, Ryan had visited every thrift store, garage sale, and estate liquidation within 50 miles of Los Angeles. A broken Rolex Submariner at Goodwill, $15, authentic 1960s model, just needed a new crystal and cleaning. 3 reproduction paintings at an estate sale, $50 each. 2 were genuine 19th century pieces worth $20,000 together. A costume jewelry brooch, buried in a box of junk at a yard sale. Real sapphire set in platinum, $8,000 at auction. A damaged first edition Hemingway at a used bookstore, $20, actually just a loose binding worth $15,000 to the right collector. He'd been careful, never too much too fast from any single source. Varied his hunting grounds constantly, paid in cash, built his stake gradually, used different auction houses and buyers. Created a paper trail that looked like luck rather than systematic exploitation. The $50,000 in medical debt was gone in 6 weeks. Then he'd built savings, real savings. Money in the bank that meant breathing room, meant choices, meant he could walk away from the hotel without terror. He'd quit his janitor job 2 weeks ago. The manager had been surprised. Ryan had been reliable, quiet, never complained. Got a better opportunity, Ryan had said, which was true enough. The better opportunity was himself, his gift, the ability to see value where others saw garbage. But the gift came with complications he hadn't anticipated. Ryan couldn't turn it off. Every object he touched flooded him with information. The history, the materials, the truth of things. It was like having a permanent psychic connection to the material world, every single thing screaming its story at him constantly, exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. He'd learned to filter it somewhat, to control the flow, but it required constant concentration. And sometimes, late at night, he'd touch something old and be overwhelmed by centuries of accumulated human experience, and he'd have to sit down until the vertigo passed. He parked the Harley outside Davenport & Co., and a luxury watch boutique on Rodeo Drive that specialized in rare timepieces. He'd been watching this place for 3 weeks. Celeste Davenport, the owner, was 24 years old and had inherited the business from her father 2 years ago. She'd transformed it from a modest operation with decent reputation into one of the premier luxury retailers in Southern California. Forbes had profiled her last year, calling her the Queen of Timepieces. The article described her as brilliant, ruthless, and completely uncompromising in her standards. Ryan had researched her obsessively, which he recognized was bordering on stalking behavior but couldn't seem to stop. He'd read every interview, watched every video, studied photographs until he could identify the subtle changes in her expression that indicated mood shifts. Not because he planned anything nefarious. He genuinely wanted to work with her, to apply his gift to the kind of high-value authentication that would establish him as a serious player in this world. But also because, if he was honest with himself, Celeste Davenport fascinated him on a level that had nothing to do with business. In every photograph, every interview, she radiated a kind of controlled intensity that reminded him of compressed springs, all that energy contained, directed, channeled into purpose. She spoke in complete sentences, never used filler words, maintained eye contact that made interviewers visibly uncomfortable. She wore expensive clothes like armor, smiled with her mouth but rarely her eyes, and gave the impression of someone who'd decided that vulnerability was a luxury she couldn't afford. The boutique's interior was all white marble and recessed lighting, designed to make customers feel simultaneously welcomed and inadequate. Glass cases displayed watches like museum pieces, each one lit individually, each one worth more than most people made in a year. The effect was intentional. You're in a sacred space now. Your money is barely good enough here. Prove you belong. Ryan walked in wearing his best casual clothes. Dark jeans, a leather jacket he'd found at a consignment store, boots that were good quality but clearly not new. Still obviously not the typical clientele. A sales associate, polished and perfect in a gray suit with a name tag reading Marcus, approached immediately with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good morning, sir. May I help you find something?" The tone was professionally polite but carried an edge that said, "Can you actually afford to be here, or are you wasting my time?" "I'd like to speak with Ms. Davenport," Ryan said calmly, meeting Marcus's gaze steadily. Marcus's smile tightened fractionally. "Ms. Davenport doesn't typically meet with walk-in customers without an appointment. Perhaps I could assist you with your needs, or we could schedule. Tell her I can authenticate watches, any watch, without equipment, without lab analysis, just by touching them. And I'm interested in discussing consulting opportunities for the boutique." Marcus's expression flickered through several emotions: amusement at the audacity, pity for the deluded, dismissal of the obvious con artist. "Sir, we employ certified horologists with decades of experience in state-of-the-art equipment. I'm sure you understand that Ms. Davenport receives similar claims frequently, and—" "Tell her." Ryan's voice was quiet, but firm, carrying a confidence he'd learned to project over the past 3 months. "Please, 5 minutes of her time. If she's not interested after hearing my demonstration, I'll leave and never bother you again." Something in his manner, maybe the lack of desperation, maybe the genuine conviction, made Marcus pause. "Wait here," he said finally, disappearing through a door behind the main counter. Ryan waited, studying the display cases with his gift activated just enough to gather information without being overwhelmed. This 1963 Submariner had been worn by a deep-sea diver named Robert Chen, who'd used it during a record-breaking dive in the Pacific in 1971. That Cartier tank had belonged to a Hollywood actress in the 1970s, worn to the Academy Awards where she'd lost Best Supporting Actress and cried in the bathroom afterward. This Patek Philippe had been purchased by a businessman to celebrate his first million, worn every day for 30 years, and sold by his widow after his death to pay for experimental cancer treatments that hadn't worked. The stories were endless, layered, beautiful, and tragic in equal measure. Every object was a portal into human experience, and Ryan was beginning to understand that his gift wasn't just about making money, it was about bearing witness to the accumulated weight of human existence, one object at a time. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." Ryan turned. Celeste Davenport stood in the doorway of her office, and the photographs hadn't done her justice at all. She was tall, 5'10" at least, with long blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail that emphasized her bone structure. Her blue eyes were startling against tan skin that spoke of weekends at the beach, not tanning salons. She wore a royal blue blazer over denim shorts, an outfit that somehow managed to be both casual and commanding, the kind of calculated informality that cost serious money to pull off correctly. The effect was deliberately calculated. "I'm successful enough to make my own rules about what professional looks like." "Probably both," Ryan admitted, finding his voice after a moment of just staring. "Celeste Davenport, though you apparently already knew that." She moved into the showroom with the confidence of someone who'd never been unwelcome anywhere, who'd never had to wonder if she belonged. Every movement was economical, purposeful. "My associate says you can authenticate watches without equipment. That's quite a claim. Also quite impossible, but I appreciate the entertainment value. I can prove it." Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, more like the expression of a chess player who's just seen an interesting but doomed opening move. "Everyone who walks through that door thinks they know something about watches. Last month I had a gentleman insist he could tell a fake Rolex by holding it to his ear and listening to the movement. He was wrong, naturally. Cost him considerable embarrassment when I proved it in front of his girlfriend. who then left him standing here while she went to lunch alone. The month before that, a woman claimed she could identify authenticity by weight alone. Also wrong. I have a collection of these stories. They're amusing at dinner parties. I'm not those people. No. Celeste circled him slowly, appraising him like she might appraise a watch, cataloging details, assessing value, determining authenticity. You're wearing a $200 jacket from Nordstrom Rack, bought on clearance. Your boots are Red Wing Iron Rangers. Good quality, but at least 3 years old based on the wear patterns. That Harley parked outside is worth maybe $8,000 on a good day. Your watch, she glanced at his wrist, is actually interesting. Seiko 5, 1970s. Possibly your father's based on how you wear it. Sentimental value only. So you're either a hustler running an elaborate con, or you're having a very good few months and decided to leverage it into something bigger. Which is it? Ryan met her gaze steadily, impressed despite himself at how quickly she'd cataloged him. Having a very good 3 months, actually. Before that, I was a janitor at the Hotel Melbrook. A janitor. Her tone made it clear what she thought of that. A janitor with a Harvard education and a gift for seeing what other people miss. That got her attention. Her eyes narrowed fractionally, the only sign that he'd surprised her. Harvard? Dropped out junior year, family emergency. Long story, not particularly interesting. He paused. But I'm very good at what I do now. Give me a test. Any watch in this boutique. I'll tell you everything about it. Authenticity, history, provenance, just by touching it. If I'm wrong, I leave, and you'll never see me again. If I'm right, we discuss business arrangements. Celeste studied him for a long moment, her brilliant mind clearly working through the angles, the possibilities, the potential pitfalls. Ryan could almost see her calculating odds, assessing risk, determining whether he was worth 5 minutes of her incredibly valuable time. All right, Ryan Walker, I'll bite. We'll do a little test. If you pass, we'll talk. If you fail, you leave immediately and never come back. Agreed? Agreed. She walked to a display case and removed 2 watches, placing them side by side on the counter. Both were Patek Philippe Nautilus models, seemingly identical, blue dials, integrated bracelets, the kind of understated elegance that screamed serious money to those who knew. One of these is authentic, Celeste said, her voice taking on a lecturing quality, like a professor setting up an impossible exam question. One is the best counterfeit money can buy, so good that it fooled 2 of my experts initially. We only discovered the fake through extensive lab analysis and documentation review. Tell me which is which. The sales associate, Marcus, had reappeared, along with 2 other staff members. Word had apparently spread about the challenge. Ryan felt their eyes on him. Skepticism, anticipation, the barely concealed pleasure of watching someone fail spectacularly. This was going to be good entertainment for them, watching this nobody with his cheap jacket and old motorcycle make a fool of himself. Ryan picked up the first watch, and the moment his fingers touched the steel, he knew. The authentic Patek Philippe sang to him in a language only he could hear. Swiss precision calibrated over generations, master craftsmanship passed down through apprenticeships dating back centuries, the accumulated weight of horological evolution. He could see the watchmaker's hands assembling it in Genève, feel the care in every adjustment, sense the pride of creation that went into every authentic piece. The movement was alive somehow, connected to a tradition of excellence that transcended mere mechanics. The counterfeit, by comparison, was silent. Well made, certainly. The forger had been skilled, possibly trained in legitimate watchmaking before turning to fraud, but ultimately soulless. A copy that had never been alive, had never been anything but an imitation. Like the difference between a painting and a photograph of that painting, similar at first glance, fundamentally different in essence. He set down the authentic piece and picked up the fake. Immediately, the differences became apparent to his gift. This one's the counterfeit, he said. Made in a high-end Chinese workshop, probably Guangzhou based on the specific techniques used. Excellent work. They even replicated the movement correctly using quality materials. But the metal alloy is wrong. Patek Philippe uses a proprietary stainless steel blend with specific nickel and chromium ratios that this doesn't match. You'd need spectrographic analysis to prove it, but it's there. And there's a microscopic tool mark on the balance bridge that shouldn't exist. The forger's hand slipped fractionally during assembly. A master's level mistake, but still a mistake. The showroom had gone completely silent. Ryan could hear the air conditioning, the faint tick of a dozen expensive watches, his own heartbeat. Celeste's expression hadn't changed, but he saw her pupils dilate slightly. Surprise, quickly controlled. And the authentic one? Her voice was carefully neutral. Manufactured in Geneva in 2019. The movement is caliber 26 to 330 SC, assembled on a Tuesday in March by a watchmaker named Jean-Claude Martineau. He's been with Patek Philippe for 37 years. It's been serviced once, about 18 months ago, because the previous owner overwound it and slightly bent the mainspring. The repair was done correctly but not perfectly. There's micron-level stress in the metal that will probably cause failure in another 5 to 7 years, well before normal life expectancy. Still functions perfectly now, still authentic, but technically compromised. You should disclose that if you sell it, though legally you're probably not obligated to since it's not detectable without specialized equipment. Celeste picked up the authentic watch with hands that were almost steady. Almost, but Ryan noticed the fractional tremor and examined it with a jeweler's loupe checking something specific. When she lowered the loupe, her expression was completely unreadable, her face a professional mask that revealed nothing. "You're right," she said finally, her voice quiet. "About all of it, including the mainspring, which I only discovered last week during routine service inspection." "How?" "I told you I can see what others can't." "That's not an answer. That's mysticism. Sometimes mysticism is just pattern recognition that hasn't been explained yet." Arthur C. Clarke said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Maybe any sufficiently developed perception is indistinguishable from psychic ability. Celeste studied him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Ryan could feel her brilliant mind working, trying to categorize him, to fit him into a framework that made sense, because there had to be an explanation. People didn't just touch watches and know their histories, their manufacturing details, their hidden flaws. It violated every principle of her rational, empirical worldview, and yet he'd done exactly that, in front of witnesses, with information he couldn't possibly have obtained through normal means. "All right," Celeste said finally, her decision made. "You've earned my attention, Mr. Walker. Let's talk in my office. Marcus, hold my calls." "Yes, Ms. Davenport," Marcus said, looking at Ryan with entirely different eyes now. Not contempt anymore. Something closer to awe, or possibly fear. Celeste led him through the boutique to a corner office that was all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. A glass desk held a laptop, a single photo frame, and nothing else. No clutter, no personality. No hint of the person who worked here. The photo showed a younger Celeste with an older man, both standing next to a vintage Ferrari. Her father, presumably, in happier times before inheritance and pressure and the weight of responsibility. "Drink?" Celeste asked, moving to a sidebar with crystal decanters. "Water's fine." She poured 2 glasses from a pitcher, Pellegrino he noticed, because even her water was expensive, and handed him one. Then she settled into the leather chair behind her desk, a power position that forced him to either sit lower or remain standing. A negotiation tactic she probably didn't even think about anymore, just automatic. Ryan remained standing unbothered. 2 could play the power game. "Nice office," he observed. "It should be. I spend more time here than at home." Celeste leaned back, studying him with those unsettling blue eyes. "So, Ryan Walker, Harvard dropout turned janitor turned psychic watch authenticator. Here's what I think. You've developed some kind of system. Maybe you've memorized distinguishing features of common fakes through obsessive study. Maybe you've got confederates feeding you information remotely. Maybe you're just exceptionally good at cold reading and you made lucky guesses about my Patek Philippe, and you've parlayed that into some quick money selling antiques and collectibles. Now you're looking to level up, get access to serious inventory, establish yourself in the luxury market. Am I close? Not even remotely. Then explain it to me. And please don't insult my intelligence with more mystical nonsense about seeing hidden truths." Ryan considered how much to reveal. The truth was impossible. No one would believe him about invisible entities granting supernatural gifts. That sounded insane even to him, and he'd lived it. But he needed access to her inventory, needed to prove himself in a way that would open doors in this rarefied world. And there was something about Celeste Davenport, the loneliness he sensed beneath her armor, the isolation of being young and brilliant and trusted by no one, that made him want to be honest. "What if I told you I could look at any object and know its entire history?" he said carefully. "Not just watches, anything. Not paintings, jewelry, antiques, documents, furniture, clothing. I can tell you where it came from, who made it, who owned it, what they did with it, whether it's genuine. Perfect accuracy, every time. I'd say you were delusional or lying, and yet I identified your Patek Philippe correctly. Details no one could know without weeks of research and access to service records, which I didn't have because I only learned about this boutique 3 weeks ago, when I started researching luxury watch dealers in Los Angeles." Celeste's fingers drummed on the desk, a rare, nervous tell. Let's say I believe you, which I absolutely don't. Why come to me? Why not just quietly make a fortune and disappear? Because I'm tired of thrift stores and garage sales and pretending $1,000 scores are life-changing money. Because the real money is in high-end authentication and consulting for clients who deal in seven-figure pieces. And because, Ryan paused, choosing his words carefully, because I've been researching you for 3 weeks and I think you might actually be ethical enough to trust. That surprised her. He saw it in the fractional widening of her eyes, the slight forward lean in her posture. Ethical? Your father's business was almost bankrupt when he died 2 years ago. Creditors were circling, debts were mounting, the reputation was shaky. You could have liquidated everything, taken what little was left, walked away clean. Instead, you doubled down, refinanced with your own money, money you'd saved from previous work, probably consulting or another business venture. You rebuilt the client base contact by contact, piece by piece, re-established credibility through ruthless honesty about authenticity, even when it cost you sales, turned the business around through sheer competence and integrity. That takes character. That takes stupidity, Celeste corrected, but her voice had softened fractionally. Every financial advisor I consulted told me to cut my losses and move on. But you didn't, because the business meant something beyond money, because your father built it over 30 years and you couldn't just let strangers liquidate his life's work for parts. For the first time, Celeste's armor cracked visibly, a flash of vulnerability, quickly suppressed, but definitely there. My father built this company from nothing. Started as a watch repair technician, worked his way up, established relationships with suppliers and collectors globally. He loved what he did, literally died at this desk, heart attack, still holding a Vacheron Constantine he was documenting. I couldn't just abandon that, even though it cost you everything. How do you know what it cost me? The vulnerability vanished, replaced by sharp defensiveness. Ryan gestured at the office, at her, choosing his words with care. The photo on your desk is 5 years old, back when you had time for things like classic cars and family trips. Your left ring finger has a very faint tan line, barely visible but there. Recently divorced, I'd guess, or at least ended a serious relationship. Your blazer is custom tailored but 2 seasons old based on the stitching style. You're making money now, but you spent years in the red, wearing the same expensive pieces because maintaining appearance mattered. Despite everything you've rebuilt, you're here at 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday when most business owners your age are at the beach or with friends. No wedding ring anymore, no personal items in this office beyond that one photo. You've sacrificed a personal life for this business. Chosen duty over happiness, or at least chosen to postpone happiness until some undefined future point when the business is secure enough. Celeste's expression had gone very still, her face a careful blank. Get out. Ms. Davenport. Get out. Her voice was ice fury barely contained beneath professional courtesy. You come into my boutique, perform your little carnival trick with the watches, then presume to psychoanalyze my entire life based on a photograph and a tan line. I don't care how you identified that Patek Philippe. I don't care if you're actually psychic or just very clever. This conversation is over. Leave now before I have security physically remove you. Ryan set down his water glass carefully on her desk. I apologize. That was invasive and inappropriate. I overstepped. Yes, you did. For what it's worth, I wasn't judging. I was trying to explain why I think we'd work well together. We've both sacrificed normal lives for what we do. We both value authenticity over appearance, truth over comfortable lies, and we're both drowning in different ways. You in responsibility and isolation, me in debt and uncertainty. I thought maybe we could help each other stay afloat. I'm not drowning, Celeste said sharply, standing now, her full height making her imposing despite the shorts and casual styling. I built this business from ruins. I'm at the top of my field. I'm successful, respected, financially secure. I don't need help staying afloat. Then why are you still here at 3 p.m. on a Saturday? Why is this office so empty? Success is supposed to buy freedom, not create a prettier cage. Celeste moved toward the door, clearly intending to escort him out personally. I gave you a chance to leave politely. Now, one more test. Ryan didn't move, didn't let her intimidate him into leaving. Any object in this office, your choice. I'll tell you everything about it. History, origin, significance. If I'm wrong about anything, I'll leave immediately and never bother you again. You'll never see me or hear from me. I'll even sign an NDA if you want. And if you're right, you seriously consider my consulting proposal. Hear me out about business arrangements. Give me a legitimate chance to prove my value beyond party tricks. Celeste's jaw tightened. She was angry, clearly, but also curious. The eternal curse of intelligent people. They couldn't resist a puzzle even when they should. Her hand moved unconsciously to her collar, then stopped. Fine, this. She pulled a necklace from beneath her blazer, revealing it for the first time. It was a simple gold chain with a small pendant. A compass rose, delicately engraved, obviously old. This. Tell me about this. Ryan didn't even need to touch it. The moment he focused his gift, the information flooded in like a tidal wave. It belonged to your mother, Sarah Davenport née Peterson. She gave it to you when you were 16 years old, 3 months before she died of stage 4 ovarian cancer. Your father gave the necklace to her on their 10th wedding anniversary, purchased at an antique store in Boston during a business trip in 1998. The inscription on the back, which you've never shown anyone, says True North always. His private name for her because she kept him grounded when his business ambitions threatened to consume him. You wear it every single day but keep it hidden beneath your clothes because it's the only thing that still makes you cry. And you can't afford to cry in this business. You touch it when you're stressed. You held it the night your father died. You clutched it so hard during his funeral that it left marks on your palm. Celeste's hand had gone to her throat, gripping the compass rose. Her face had lost all color. Her eyes suddenly bright with tears she was desperately trying not to shed. How could you possibly? I told you. I see what others can't. You researched me. You found old family photos, obituaries. You hired a private investigator to... There are no photos of that necklace anywhere online or in public records. Your mother wasn't on social media. She was sick during the era when that became common. The inscription isn't in any public document, not even your father's will or estate inventory. I know about it because I can see it, Miss Davenport. Just like I can see that you're terrified right now because you can't explain me, can't categorize me, can't control this situation. And control is what keeps you safe. Control is what got you through your mother's death, your failed marriage, your father's death, rebuilding this business. You've built your entire life around control, and I just demonstrated that some things can't be controlled or predicted or defended against. Celeste sank back into her chair, her composure completely shattered. Her hand still clutched the compass pendant, knuckles white. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. What are you? Just a guy who got offered a gift 3 months ago. Or maybe a curse, depending on how you look at it. This isn't a gift. This is... She stopped, struggling for words, her brilliant mind trying and failing to make sense of what had just happened. This is impossible. Most impossible things are just things we haven't figured out how to measure yet. Quantum mechanics was impossible until it wasn't. Consciousness is still impossible to fully explain, but we all experience it. Maybe I'm just ahead of the measurement curve. They sat in silence for a long moment, the air conditioning humming, the muffled sounds of the boutique beyond the door seeming very far away. Ryan watched Celeste struggle with this new information, seeing her worldview crack and reform around the reality of him. It was like watching someone discover the earth was round after spending their whole life believing it was flat. Painful, disorienting, fundamental. Finally, Celeste spoke, her voice steady again, but different now, more vulnerable. If you can really do this, see the truth of things, know their histories, then you're either the most valuable consultant I could ever hire, or the most dangerous person I could ever meet. Probably both. Why are you really here, Ryan Walker? And don't give me bullshit about business opportunities. Nobody with your ability would need my help making money. You could clean out every antique store in America. So why me? Why this boutique? Why now? It was a good question, and it deserved an honest answer. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Because I spent 3 months finding treasures in garbage and it felt like prostituting this gift for pennies. I want to work with real art, real value, things that matter. And because... He hesitated, then decided to just say it. Because when I researched you, I saw someone else who understood what it means to be alone with something that sets you apart. You rebuilt this business by yourself. Nobody helped you. Nobody believed in you. You did it through sheer force of will and refusal to quit. That's lonely. I recognize that kind of lonely. Celeste's eyes glistened, but she blinked the emotion away, her control reasserting itself. That was your second mistake today. The first was psychoanalyzing me. Don't do it again. I don't need your pity or your understanding. I'm not offering pity, I'm offering partnership. Partnership. She laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. You don't know anything about me. I know you're brilliant, ethical, and profoundly lonely. I know you work 16-hour days because going home to an empty house feels worse than staying here. I know you've built an empire but have nobody to share it with, and I know He stopped because what he knew next felt too intimate to say. What? Celeste demanded. Finish the thought. I know you're terrified that this is all there is, that you saved your father's business but lost your own life in the process, that success doesn't feel like you thought it would, that you're waiting for some moment when everything feels worth it. But that moment keeps not arriving. Celeste was crying now, tears streaming down her face despite her obvious attempts to stop them. Get out, she whispered, but without conviction. Not until you hear my proposal. Damn you. She wiped her eyes furiously, mascara smearing slightly. Damn you for coming in here and just seeing you? Ryan finished gently. Actually seeing you, not the armor you wear. Yes. She took a shaky breath. Yes, I hate it. I hate you for it. I can leave if you want. Swear I'll never come back. You'll never have to see me again. Celeste was quiet for a long moment, her breathing gradually steadying. Finally, no, stay. Tell me about this business proposal. But understand this first. If you betray me, if you use what you know about me against me, I will destroy you. I have lawyers who specialize in making people disappear from the business world. I have resources you can't imagine. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. She stood, moved to the sidebar, poured herself something that was definitely not water from one of the decanters, took a long drink. So, partnership. What did you have in mind? For the next hour, they talked business. Ryan explained his vision, exclusive consulting for Davenport & Co., authenticating high-value pieces, providing provenance research, identifying acquisition opportunities. In exchange, a base retainer plus percentage of deals he facilitated. Standard consulting arrangement, all above board. Celeste countered, prove yourself first on something that actually matters, something with real stakes. If successful, they'd discuss permanent arrangements, which led them here to Geneva to the Dent chronometer test. Sitting now in the auction house viewing room, Ryan holding a $300,000 question in his hands. The pocket watch was breathtaking up close. Gold case engraved with intricate maritime scenes showing sailing ships and compasses. Visible movement through a crystal back revealing mechanical complexity that modern watches rarely attempted. The kind of craftsmanship that made modern pieces look like crude toys by comparison. Ryan held it carefully, feeling the weight of it, and activated his gift. Information flooded in, but something was immediately wrong. The watch was singing two songs simultaneously, one authentic, one false. Like a palimpsest, two histories written on top of each other, both true and both lies. Well, Celeste whispered, leaning close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something expensive, subtle, with notes of bergamot. What do you see? It's complicated, Ryan said, his eyes still closed, focusing deeper. Complicated how? Give me a moment. There are layers here. He pushed past the surface truth toward something hidden beneath. The watch was fighting him, or rather, someone had worked very hard to make it fight him, to obscure its true history. He could feel the deliberate misdirection, the careful work of someone who understood how to fool not just equipment but also intuition. Finally, he found it. The truth beneath the deception. Oh, that's clever, he murmured almost admiringly. What? Ryan opened his eyes. The movement is absolutely authentic. Edward John Dent, manufactured in his London workshop in 1840, serial number matching his records. It's a genuine masterpiece of Victorian horology, one of only 12 he made that year. The problem is the case. The case? It's a Frankenstein watch. Someone, probably in the 1990s, based on the specific techniques used, took an authentic Dent movement and housed it in a period-appropriate case that wasn't original to this piece. The case is real gold, tested and genuine. The engravings are authentic 1840s work, probably from a maritime chronometer that was damaged beyond repair. But they weren't made for this watch. They're married, and whoever did the work was extremely skilled. Most experts would never catch it without months of documentation research. Celeste's face had gone pale. She picked up the watch carefully, examining it with a jeweler's loupe, checking details Ryan had pointed out. He could see her brilliant mind working, confirming his assessment, seeing what he saw. Finally, she set it down, her hand trembling slightly. Are you absolutely certain? Completely. Look at the interior of the case. There should be maker's marks matching the movement exactly. They don't. They're close. Same era, similar style, but not identical. The case is marked for E.J. Dent, but with different tool signatures than the movement. Someone did this maybe 25 years ago. Very skilled work. Probably a master watchmaker who was struggling financially and saw an opportunity. The result is worth maybe $100,000 as a period-appropriate housing of an authentic movement, but not $300,000 as a completely original piece. Celeste was silent for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then, if I bid on this and authenticate it to my client as fully original, I'm committing fraud. Yes. If I walk away, my client will be furious. He's been waiting for a piece like this for 2 years. I promised him provenance and authenticity. I know. And if word gets out about why I walked away, if people in this industry know I discovered the deception, the auction house will blame me for devaluing their marquee piece. I'll be persona non grata in European auction circles. Ryan nodded. This was the reality of her world, the politics and economics of high-end dealing. Truth was expensive, messy, dangerous, sometimes more costly than lies. Sometimes maintaining comfortable illusions was better business than exposing reality. Celeste stared at the watch for what felt like an eternity. Ryan could almost see her calculating. The money, the reputation, the client relationship, the long-term implications of every possible choice. This was a crossroads moment, he realized. A test not of him, but of her, of what she really valued beneath all the business pragmatism. Finally she stood. We're leaving. You're sure? I didn't rebuild my business by lying to clients. If this watch isn't what it claims to be, we don't buy it. Period. Her voice was firm, decided, no trace of doubt. Thank you. You just saved me from making a $250,000 mistake and destroying my reputation in the process. As they walked out, Marguerite appeared immediately, her smile professional but her eyes sharp. Ms. Davenport, did you need more time with the piece? No, thank you, Celeste said with perfect politeness. After careful examination, we've determined this piece isn't suitable for our client's collection. We appreciate the viewing opportunity. Marguerite's smile tightened into something harder, more calculating. I see. Might I ask what specific concerns you found? Our documentation is quite thorough. Just a feeling, Celeste said smoothly. You understand how it is with high-value acquisitions. Everything needs to feel absolutely right. Of course. The temperature in the room had dropped noticeably. Marguerite knew exactly what had just happened, that they'd discovered something, that they were walking away with knowledge that devalued her piece. Safe travels, Ms. Davenport. I do hope we'll have the opportunity to work together in the future. The subtext was clear. Don't spread what you know. Outside, in the cool Geneva evening, Ryan and Celeste walked in silence toward their waiting car. The city was beautiful at dusk, medieval architecture lit amber, Lake Geneva reflecting city lights, the Alps visible in the distance. Wealth and history and beauty, all concentrated in one place. Finally, Celeste spoke. That was the right call. I know. My client won't see it that way. He'll be furious. Probably take his business elsewhere. Probably. I just walked away from $200,000 in profit because you touched a watch for 30 seconds and told me your feelings. Also true. Celeste stopped walking abruptly. She turned to face him, and in the streetlight her eyes were very blue, very vulnerable. Why am I trusting you? I don't trust anyone. It's kept me alive in this business, kept me safe. So why do I believe you absolutely, without question, despite knowing you for less than 3 days? Ryan met her gaze steadily. Because you know I'm telling the truth. Whatever questions you have about me, whatever skepticism you're fighting, you know I'm not lying. You can feel it. That should make me more suspicious, not less. Should it? Or is it actually a relief to find someone who can't lie to you, who you don't have to second-guess or defend against? They stood there, inches apart, close enough that Ryan could see the flecks of darker blue in her irises, could count her heartbeats and the pulse at her throat. The evening had shifted something between them, transformed a business relationship into something more complicated, more dangerous. We should get dinner, Celeste said finally, breaking the moment. Somewhere expensive. I'm depressed about losing a client and I have a travel budget I might as well burn through. You're the boss. Yes, I am. But she smiled as she said it, and it was genuine this time, reaching her eyes. Come on. I know a place near the old town. They have a Michelin star and a wine list that requires a PhD to navigate. The restaurant was tucked into a building that dated back to the 15th century. Stone walls, vaulted ceilings, candlelight that made everything feel intimate and conspiratorial. Celeste ordered in flawless French, apparently fluent in at least 3 languages if Ryan's observations were correct, while he felt increasingly out of his depth in this world of old money and older architecture. Relax, Celeste said, noticing his discomfort as they settled at a table by the window. I'm not judging your table manners. Could have fooled me. Okay, I'm judging them a little, but only because you're holding your fork like you're about to stab someone. She demonstrated the correct grip. Continental style, graceful and practiced. Like this. It's not a weapon. Ryan adjusted his hold, feeling like a child learning to eat. Better. Marginally. She took a sip of wine that probably cost more than his motorcycle payment. 6 months ago, if someone told me I'd be in Geneva having dinner with a psychic ex-janitor, I would have had them evaluated for mental health issues. I'm not psychic and I'm not a janitor anymore, thanks to you. Then what are you? It was the question Ryan had been asking himself for 3 months without finding a satisfactory answer. Honestly, I'm still figuring it out. I know what I can do, but not what I should do with it, or what the cost will ultimately be. Their first course arrived, something delicate involving seafood and foam that looked more like art than food. Ryan waited for Celeste to start, then mimicked her technique precisely. She watched with barely concealed amusement. You're a quick study, she noted. Survival skill. I grew up poor, then got into Harvard, then dropped out and went back to being poor. Had to learn to code switch fast to blend in wherever I ended up. Watch, learn, adapt. Where did you grow up? Bakersfield. Working class neighborhood. The kind where everybody knows everybody's business. My mom was a nurse, worked double shifts to keep us afloat. My dad was gone before I have memories of him. Disappeared when I was 2, nobody knows where. We got by, it was fine. He paused. Until it wasn't. What happened? Mom got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it. Ate through our savings like acid, then my college fund, then any hope I had of finishing my degree. I dropped out of Harvard junior year to take care of her. Moved back to Bakersfield, worked 3 part-time jobs while managing her care. She died anyway 6 months later. Left me with $50,000 in medical debt and no degree and no marketable skills except cleaning things. Celeste set down her fork, her expression softening in a way he hadn't seen before. I'm so sorry. It was 3 years ago. I'm okay now. We're getting there anyway. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're a Harvard dropout working minimum wage who made a literal deal with something supernatural for powers you don't understand. That doesn't scream okay. Ryan laughed despite himself, the sound surprising him. When you put it that way, it sounds even more pathetic than it feels. Not pathetic, just intensely human. Celeste leaned forward, candlelight catching in her hair. Can I tell you something? I inherited my father's business when I was 22. Everyone, and I mean everyone, told me to sell. Take the money, go to business school, build something new. But I couldn't, because this business was him. His passion, his legacy, his entire adult life. And I couldn't let strangers liquidate his life's work for scrap. So you saved it. I nearly destroyed it first. Made terrible decisions because I was 22 and grieving and had no idea what I was doing. Trusted the wrong people who saw me as an easy mark. Burned through money like it was kindling, trying to maintain appearances while everything crumbled beneath me. I was so focused on preserving his dream that I almost killed it completely. She finished her wine in one long swallow. It took me 2 years to figure out I was running his company, not mine. That I needed to honor what he built while making it my own thing. Does that make sense? Completely. My point is, we all make deals we don't fully understand at the time. With invisible forces, with our own ambitions, with the ghosts of people we loved. You're not alone in that. You're not uniquely damaged or pathetic. You're just human. And being human means making impossible choices and living with the consequences. Ryan felt something shift in his chest. Something fundamental. This woman, this brilliant, complicated, armored woman, understood him in a way no one had since his mother died. She saw through his defenses to the person underneath, and instead of running, she'd chosen to stay. It was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For seeing me. Actually seeing me. Not just what I can do for you or what I represent in your business plans. Just me. Celeste's expression softened completely, all her careful armor falling away. For just a moment she was fully visible. Lonely, brilliant, desperate for connection, but terrified of the vulnerability it required. You're welcome. And thank you for the same. Nobody's actually seen me in. I don't know how long. Years, maybe. Her phone buzzed, breaking the moment. She glanced at it and her expression closed again, professional mask sliding back into place. My client, demanding an update about the watch. She typed a response, fingers moving rapidly. I should probably tell him the bad news now rather than dragging it out. Want privacy? No. Stay. I might need moral support when he inevitably starts screaming about wasting his time. She made the call. Ryan watched her transform. Shoulders back, voice crisp and utterly professional. All trace of vulnerability erased. She explained the situation with the watch. articulated the specific concerns about provenance and authenticity, provided her professional recommendation to pass on the piece. The conversation was brief, tense, punctuated by silence while the client presumably yelled. When she hung up, she looked exhausted. He's furious. Wants a second opinion from someone competent. Threatened to move all his business to a competitor in New York. Implied that I've lost my edge, that I'm too young and inexperienced to handle his collection properly. Will he follow through? Probably, but that's fine. I don't need clients who value their egos over authenticity. And I definitely don't need clients who insult me when I save them from a $250,000 mistake. Their main courses arrived. They ate mostly in comfortable silence, the earlier intensity giving way to quiet companionship. Ryan thought about paths and choices, about the future he'd glimpsed when he touched Celeste's hand that first day. Was it real? Or just his imagination, his gift misfiring in ways he didn't understand? Did he even want it to be real? You went quiet, Celeste observed, pulling him from his thoughts. Just thinking. About the price of doing the right thing. How it's never as simple or clean as it should be. How every choice has costs we don't see until it's too late. Celeste nodded, understanding immediately. In my experience, the right thing is usually expensive, unpopular, and makes you doubt yourself at 3 a.m. while you're lying awake running numbers and wondering if you just destroyed your entire career. And yet you keep doing it. And yet I keep doing it. She smiled, but it was sad. Stupid, right? Like self-sabotage disguised as integrity. Not stupid. Rare. Most people choose comfort over truth. Most people are smarter than us. They finished dinner slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. Talked about everything and nothing. Philosophy, music, books they'd loved, places they wanted to visit. Discovered they both loved motorcycles. Both read Stoic philosophy for comfort. Both felt fundamentally out of place in their own lives. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they'd known each other for years instead of days. When they finally left the restaurant, Geneva was quiet, the streets mostly empty. They walked back to the hotel through medieval lanes, past fountains and monuments and centuries of accumulated history. Outside their adjacent rooms, Celeste paused, her hand on her door handle. "Thank you for today," she said softly, "for being honest about the watch, for being honest about everything, really. She hesitated, then met his eyes. "For seeing me. Anytime." She looked like she might say something else, might bridge the distance between them, might acknowledge the thing that had been building all evening. Instead, she unlocked her door. "Good night, Ryan." "Good night, Celeste." He watched her disappear into her room, then entered his own. The space was elegant but impersonal, luxury without warmth, designed for travelers who existed everywhere and nowhere. Ryan moved to the window, looked out at Geneva sleeping below and thought about deals and prices and what he might ultimately owe for his gift. Then he felt it, the presence returning after months of silence. Ryan touched the window glass and suddenly he saw it. A reflection that wasn't his own, the invisible being, finally visible for just a moment in the glass. Its form was humanoid but wrong, like something pretending to understand human shape without quite mastering it. Too many joints, proportions that almost worked but didn't quite. "Hello, Ryan Walker," it said, its voice resonating directly in his skull. "Have you been enjoying my gift? What do you want?" "Just checking in, making sure you haven't forgotten our arrangement, that you remember there's a price for what I gave you." "I haven't forgotten." "Good. Because soon, very soon now, I'm going to collect. And the price, Ryan Walker, will be higher than you imagine. Higher than you can imagine. What do you want from me?" The reflection smiled, and it was terrible. "I want what you're beginning to value most. I want what you're starting to believe might save you from yourself. But I won't tell you what it is yet. That would ruin the surprise. Suffice to say, when I come to collect, you'll have to choose between your gift and your future. Between power and love, between what you are and what you could become." "You're talking about Celeste. Am I? Or am I talking about something else entirely?" "Time will tell, Ryan Walker. Time will tell." Then it was gone and Ryan was alone with his reflection and his dread, staring at the Swiss night and wondering what terrible choice was coming. What price he'd ultimately have to pay for power he'd been too desperate to refuse. The gift had seemed like salvation 3 months ago, but salvation always came with a cost. And Ryan was beginning to realize he couldn't afford what he'd purchased, that the debt would come due in ways that would destroy everything he was building, everyone he was beginning to care about. Outside, Geneva slept beautiful and ancient and indifferent to human suffering. Inside, Ryan stood at the window and prepared himself for the reckoning he knew was coming. The payment he'd have to make for seeing truth. The gift was a curse after all. He'd just been too desperate to see it. 6 weeks after Geneva, Ryan Walker stood in Celeste Davenport's private office at sunset, watching her authenticate a 19th century breguet with the techniques he'd taught her. Their consulting arrangement had become something more, a partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and feelings neither of them had acknowledged out loud. "You're getting better at this," Ryan observed as she examined the watch's movement through a loop. "I had a good teacher." Celeste looked up, smiling. "Though I still can't do what you do. The touching and knowing everything trick remains uniquely yours. Maybe that's for the best." Something in his tone made her set down the watch. "What's wrong? You've been distracted all week." Ryan moved to the window, staring at the Los Angeles twilight. How could he explain the dreams that had been haunting him? The presence returning nightly, whispering about payment due, about choices coming. Nothing, just tired. "Ryan." Celeste crossed to him, placed a hand on his arm. The touch sent electricity through him, it always did. "Talk to me." Before he could respond, the air in the office changed. Temperature dropping, pressure increasing, the familiar sensation of the presence arriving. But this time it was stronger, more tangible. Celeste felt it too. He saw her shiver, saw her eyes widen. "What is that?" she whispered. "My payment coming due," Ryan said quietly. The presence materialized. Not fully visible but perceptible now, a distortion in the air like heat shimmer. Its voice resonated through the office, making the windows vibrate. "Hello, Ryan Walker, and hello, Celeste Davenport. How convenient that you're both here." Celeste had gone pale but didn't run. "What the hell is that?" "The thing that gave me my gift. The thing I made a deal with. Time to collect," the presence announced. "I want a heart, Ryan Walker. A human heart, freely given. You have two choices, give me hers, or give me yours." The words hung in the air like poison. Ryan felt his own heart hammering. What does that mean? Exactly what it sounds like. Her heart, her capacity to love, to trust, to be vulnerable, given to me. I'll take it, and she'll spend the rest of her life empty, unable to feel connection, a brilliant shell with nothing inside. Or, the presence's attention shifted to Ryan. "You give me yours. Your gift, your power, your ability to see truth, but also your memories of her, your feelings, everything you've built together these past weeks. You'll forget her completely. Go back to being ordinary. Live a normal life without power or her. You son of a bitch," Ryan breathed. "You did this deliberately. Made me care about her so you could use it against me. I gave you what you asked for. The gift, the opportunity, what you chose to do with it, who you chose to care about. That was your decision." Celeste was shaking, but her voice was steady. "Take mine, don't make him give up what he is." "No." Ryan grabbed her hand. "Absolutely not. I won't let you become empty because of my mistake. It's not your choice alone." Celeste turned to the presence. "If I give you my heart willingly, he keeps his gift and his memories? Yes, he'll remember you perfectly. Remember what you were before you became hollow. He'll have to live with that knowledge forever, that he saved himself by sacrificing you." Ryan saw the trap. Either choice destroyed him. Lose Celeste to emptiness, or lose himself and forget they'd ever mattered to each other. Perfect cruelty. "There's a third option," Ryan said slowly, his mind racing. "You said a heart freely given. What if we both give you something? Split the cost?" The presence seemed to consider this. "Interesting. What did you have in mind?" "You take my gift, my ability to see truth, but you leave my memories, my feelings. I become ordinary, but I remember everything. And you take from Celeste her fear, her inability to be vulnerable, her armor. She keeps her capacity to love, but loses her defenses. We both pay. We both keep what matters most." Silence. "Then, that would work. Both of you diminished but not destroyed. Both capable of choosing each other despite the cost. Yes, I accept these terms." "Wait." Celeste squeezed Ryan's hand. "If you lose your gift, you lose everything you've built, your business, your future. I lose a power I never earned, but I keep you. That's not a loss. And I lose my defenses. I'll be vulnerable, exposed. You'll be free," Ryan corrected gently. "Free to actually live instead of just surviving." Celeste's eyes filled with tears. "This is insane. Probably, but it's the best option we have, and..." Ryan pulled her closer. "I'd rather be ordinary with you than powerful and alone. Or worse, powerful, and watching you become empty." She kissed him then, desperately, like she was memorizing the feeling. When they broke apart, she whispered against his mouth, "Are you sure?" "Completely." They turned to face the presence together, hands intertwined. "We accept," Ryan said. "Take what you're owed. We both pay." The presence surged forward. Ryan felt his gift being ripped away, the ability to see truth, to know histories, to perceive the hidden. It hurt, like losing a sense he'd only just learned to use. The world became flat, ordinary, surfaces without depths. He gasped, stumbled, would have fallen if Celeste hadn't caught him. Simultaneously, he felt something leave her, the rigid control, the armor, the walls she'd built to survive. She cried out, collapsing against him, suddenly exposed and vulnerable in ways she'd never allowed before. When it was over, the presence was gone. Just two ordinary people in an office holding each other, fundamentally changed. "I can't see anymore," Ryan said, testing it. He touched the briquet on Celeste's desk. Nothing. Just metal and glass. No history, no truth. "It's really gone. And I can't," Celeste's voice broke. "I can't hide anymore. Everything I feel is right there, exposed. It's terrifying." "Yeah." Ryan pulled her closer. "But we're still here. Still us. Still together. What do we do now?" Ryan thought about it. "I guess I learned to authenticate watches the normal way. Years of study, training, maybe get certified as a horologist. It'll take time, but—" "I can teach you," Celeste interrupted. "We'll do it together. Build something real, not based on supernatural gifts, but on actual expertise." "You'd do that, Ryan?" She cupped his face in her hands. "You just gave up everything that made you special to save me. Teaching you about watches seems like the least I can do." He laughed, surprising himself. "When you put it that way. Besides," she smiled through tears, "I'm going to need someone who understands what I'm going through. Someone who knows what it's like to lose your defenses and have to figure out how to be human again." They stood there in the fading light, holding each other, two people who'd paid a terrible price for connection, and decided it was worth it anyway. The world was ordinary now. No hidden truths, no supernatural perception, no shortcuts or easy answers. Just work and time and the slow building of something real. "I love you," Ryan said, the words simple and true and completely ordinary. "I love you too," Celeste replied, and for the first time in years, she meant it without fear or reservation or defense. Outside, the sun finished setting. Inside, two people began the hard, ordinary work of building a life together. No gifts, no powers, no easy answers. Just choice and commitment and the courage to be vulnerable. It wasn't the ending Ryan had imagined 3 months ago in that basement, but it was better. It was real, and real, they were discovering, was worth any price. 1 year later, Ryan Walker stood behind the counter at Davenport & Co., examining a vintage Omega with tools and knowledge he'd earned through countless hours of study. No supernatural gift, just expertise, hard-won and genuine. The bell above the door chimed. Celeste walked in from her lunch meeting, smiled when she saw him. "How's the Omega?" "Authentic 1960s. Some restoration work, but well done. I'll call the client." She moved behind the counter, kissed him quickly. "My brilliant partner, learning from the best." Life was ordinary now. They worked together, lived together, built a business based on skill rather than supernatural shortcuts. Some days were hard. Ryan sometimes missed the gift, the power, the easy knowing. And Celeste sometimes struggled with vulnerability, with feeling everything without her old defenses. But they'd chosen each other, chosen reality over illusion, connection over power, love over safety. The blue Harley was still parked outside. No supernatural help needed to maintain it, just regular maintenance and care. Just like their relationship, just like their lives. Ordinary, real, worth everything they'd paid. And on quiet nights, when they lay together in the darkness of their shared home, Ryan would touch Celeste's compass necklace and remember, not with his gift, but with his heart, why some prices were worth paying. Some gifts were curses, but some choices, the hard ones made with open eyes and vulnerable hearts, those were gifts that actually mattered.